Welcome again. Thank you so much for staying tuned. I quite appreciate every effort made. Your liking, your subscribing, your following. Thank you for making it known. And for you, being in class is a very good one. I quite appreciate it. Thank you so much. Now, we already started learning on minerals, and then we talked about mostly on calcium and phosphorus, and we're now in potassium. We already talked about in the last class. We talked about the historical perspective concerning phosphorus and the sources of dietary phosphorus. You want to know the various food substances you can take and then get enough phosphorus so you're not deficient in this very vital mineral. So I want to enjoin you. You can go back to the previous video, and as a matter of fact, the previous video, so you learn. Thank you so much for staying tuned. Without much ado, we go to what we have today. Today we are looking at how potassium is absorbed. Now, it's good when you know the source of the thing. Look at the flow. We know the historical background, and then we know where we can get the mineral. And then upon ingestion or eating, there is digestion after ingestion. There is also to be the absorption. Sequel to absorption will be metabolism. So let's take it one by one. We've done the sources and we'll be looking at the absorption. Now we'll make it very simple. Now potassium is primarily just like phosphorus absorbed in the small intestine. Now remember in the previous class we talked about phosphorus being absorbed in the small intestine, particularly the jejunum and the duodenum. The same thing applies to this, and the same processes, the passive diffusion and the active transport. Although the other one in phosphorus, we had the need of vitamin D, but not necessarily here. Then we look at the efficiency of it. The efficiency of the absorption of phosphorus is actually quite high, and the reason is about up to 85 to 90%, and the reason is because phosphorus is actually very water soluble. When you say something is soluble, well, first of all, over 70-80% of the human body is fluid, water. So you want to say that anything that dissolves in water will flow and go very easily. So this is water soluble. So potassium is very water soluble. That is why its absorption is very, very efficient. Then we'll also look at it in respect to the influence. Now there's something about, we talked about calcium, we started with calcium and then phosphorus. They call them antagonistic minerals. Somehow you have to maintain a balance between the both of them so you don't have an excess of this. As a matter of fact, if you have high quantity of this, you should balance up with comparatively lower than the lower quantity of the other. So lower level, let me use the word level. So absorption of potassium and sodium happen to be the same. Now for those who are conversant with organic, the periodic table in chemistry, you see that both of them are group 1 elements, so they perform about the same thing. So they are group 1 elements, so you need to maintain a balance. So you almost like the antagonistic. So this will not be high and this will be high. No, you don't have to. So there are regulatory factors that ensures that phosphorus at a particular level is maintained, and then the other antagonistic is also maintained at a range. Now the absorption of phosphorus is actually less influenced by hormones, unlike that of sodium. This is where sodium comes in because they are both, like I said, antagonistic. Now, excretion is actually regulated by the kidney. This brings us here. We'll talk about that here. Now, when we talked about phosphorus, please don't mix it up. Phosphorus, P, potassium, also starting with letter P for the English, but potassium, the symbol chemically is K, kalium, going by the new Latin name. So let's go quickly to the metabolism of it. Metabolism, after absorption comes metabolism. I've talked about what metabolism is. Absorption, taking it into the bloodstream, that's absorption. Then metabolism is two parts. Whatever is taken in the food of animal, as a matter of fact, including humans, is actually broken down by a process called catabolism, and then restructured and built up again with a process called anabolism. So the both of them happen, both catabolism and anabolism are actually processes of metabolism. So metabolism is actually both catabolism and anabolism. So the both of them goes on. So what happens is this: absorption. After potassium is absorbed, it's also now transported by the bloodstream. The functions of the blood to transport materials in the body to different cells of the body. Now, to get these facts cleared, 90% of the body phosphorus is actually stored in the cells, muscle cells, as intracellular fluid. Now, remember, fluid means liquid parts, liquid, more often than not, liquid gas. Now, more often than not, we're looking at the liquid part of it, especially in the muscle parts. This will underscore the importance of potassium in contraction of the muscles. We'll get there when we start talking about the functions of the mineral. That should be in the next class. Now, it's 90%, a whopping 90% of it is actually stored in intracellular blood fluid. However, only 2% in extracellular blood fluid. That means outside the cell, fluid that are not in the cells of the body. The cell that we're looking at, even in the intracellular, is even the blood muscle cells. Now, look at some regulatory mechanisms. 3 of them. Number 1, interaction of sodium-potassium. Potassium-sodium pump regulates potassium levels. There is a pump, a system by which sodium level in the bloodstream, sodium ion level, is actually regulated vis-a-vis or compared to potassium. Now, while this particular pump regulates the presence of potassium in the within cell muscle, within cells fluid, it also regulates, on the other hand, the level of sodium. Sodium, English-wise, is sodium. However, it is represented with Na, being natrium, the New Latin version. So when we get to sodium, we'll talk about that. So for space, I've just used the symbol instead of the name. Now, this pump regulates the level of sodium in the extracellular fluid. Then look at the second one, which is the kidney, is the main regulatory organ, and just like the phosphorus, it excretes when potassium is too much. In case of excess potassium in the bloodstream, ultrafiltration occurs, and then through urine, the kidney takes ultrafiltration occurs in the urine and then in the kidney, and then excess potassium is excreted. On the other hand, when it is low, it also helps in the conservation of phosphorus so that the body is not entirely devoid of phosphorus. Potassium. Then the third one is a hormone. Now, we said previously that matters of potassium are not mostly affected or controlled or regulated by hormones, unlike phosphorus. Now, however, we have aldosterone hormone, which influences potassium ion excretion by regulating it, ensuring a balance now between the presence or the levels or quantity of phosphorus ion and sodium ion in the bloodstream. Now, these things are very important: chemical balance, ion balance, metal, some different substances, the balance in the body. We'll talk about homeostasis, having a very stable or balance of different ions, substances in the body. If it's too much, you have a hypo, a hyper like I talked about, and when it's too low, you have a hypo. Now, the body is a well-structured, well-organized system that ensures that this particular organ is responsible for this, or what, keeping the levels of this at this particular level, the levels of this particular component, so that none is too much. If it's too much, it's going to be an adverse situation, lead to an adverse situation. And when it's too low, the same thing would apply. Now, I want to thank you for staying tuned to this. We're going to draw the curtain on this. We've looked already on the absorption of potassium and the metabolism of it. In the next class, we'll be looking at function, and I tell you, it's going to be interesting. So please stay tuned, like, share, and subscribe. Thank you so much. I love you. Let's meet in the next class. Thank you.